held hostage in their own car by a gargantuan green beast.
This thing was so tall and had all this slime on it. Its eyes were just like penetrating. Who wouldn't be screaming? We thought we were going to die.
The attack unleashed a lynch mob.
People were showing up with guns, knives, clubs to hunt for this creature.
Was the poison rain that fell on Oakville a secret government test?
Everyone described it as a flu-like syndrome. All I wanted to know was, what is this stuff?
Warfare. It's biowarfare. In Oakville, they lived the terror, and it was a reality for them.
An abandoned stretch of river, and the killer canines ready to ambush anyone entering their turf.
It sounded 10 times louder than a wolf. I've got to get out of here. I feel like I'm going to die.
In the heartland state of Indiana, where the White and Driftwood rivers meet, sits Columbus, a Midwest manufacturing hub. Some 40,000 residents live and work here. A focal point for the city's center is Mill Race Park. Thick woods, mossy lakes, and a network of trails. An 85-acre preserve directly in the middle of town. Its name would become synonymous with a monster.
A lot of people genuinely believed that there was a monster in Millrace Park. People were coming out of the woodwork, and they were walking through the woods with all these weapons and baseball bats and shotguns. The mayor told them there's no monster in my town, but there was a monster in his town.
Chris McDaniel is a Columbus native and a paranormal investigator. He's been obsessed with discovering the truth about an astonishing event that took his town by storm some 40 years ago.
I was 7 or 8 years old when the incident took place. The first time that I heard about the reports, I was kind of shocked that something like that happened in our hometown. And I went to the local library, going through all the microfilms of the newspaper and pulling up all the articles.
It would all begin on November 1st, 1974. Early that evening, 4 young women went walking in Millrace Park.
The women were just sitting in the park, just having conversation, talking.
She's just being silly. I just can't believe it. That bad? And it was like 20 degrees.
They seen this creature lurking between the trees near the boat ramp. They described the creature as being 6 foot tall, bipedal, walking on 2 legs, had very sharp claws. It was very dirty, almost mossy looking.
Badly shaken, the women contacted the police.
After the first report, the police officers assumed that this is probably a hoax. The park remained open. The officers didn't think any more about it.
Later that same night,
I just can't get over that party, though.
after leaving a drive-through burger joint, 3 young women were looking for a place to eat their meal.
Okay, where you guys want to go eat? We should go to Millrace Park. Yeah, let's go there. Good idea. Let's do it.
They had no idea what was waiting for them. Tyra Cataline was one of the women in that car.
Sometimes when I think about it, it gives me goosebumps. Just it takes me back to that evening. But I've never seen anything like that before.
After 40 years, she's finally come forward to tell her story.
I stopped talking about it because I was tired of hearing people saying, well, that didn't happen. And they didn't want to listen to the truth.
November 1st, 1974 was a mild night. So Tyra and her friends decided to park down by the river in Millrace Park.
I just honestly can't get over the party. I mean, it was fun. What a joke, though. But I mean, you can't. No. Too much.
And we happened to park by the boat launch there, and in front of us was woods and then the river.
Yeah, that was fun. That party was okay. What was that? I saw something move over there.
I couldn't see it. I told him I didn't see anything. Then the other one said, I think I saw it again.
What was that?
And then I saw something moving. And it come out of that woods. Oh my God. This thing, it was like nothing I've ever seen in my life. This thing had to be at least 7 foot tall, if not taller. It was taller than a normal man. It was beating on the windshield. It was trying to get in, and we were screaming. I don't know if that agitated him more or what.
The only thing separating them and this creature was the windshield.
What was that? I don't know. That was not a person.
We were all afraid it was going to come back, but we couldn't move.
Where'd he go?
There was this greenish tinge to the thing's face. I don't know if it had been in the river drinking and got moss on it, because there was so much slime on its face.
They seen the creature less than 2 feet away through their windshield of the car. I would say that these women got a pretty good look at it. This was not a person in a costume.
He did have fangs, and he was trying to bite the glass through, and I was afraid he was just going to tear the door off. Nothing has ever scared me as much as that.
In Columbus, Indiana, on November 1st, 1974, a monster covered in muck threatened visitors in the city's downtown public park. After 4 decades, Tyra Cataline is now stepping forward to recount the horrific ordeal.
It was just a typical evening, and shortly after Halloween, and we decided to go take our dinner down to the park and eat and talk.
He was talking to her all night, though. Yeah, I saw that.
And we were just kind of staring into the dark woods.
That party wasn't bad.
Out from the woods comes this thing.
Relentlessly attacking from every side of the car. They couldn't hold out much longer.
I said, we gotta get out of here. But the driver's leg was shaking so bad she couldn't get the car started. We were just glad to get out of there with our lives, as it was just the most horrible thing you ever saw.
They wanted to head right home. But Tyra and her friends felt certain the attack should be reported to the police.
I'm telling you, like, you can play for it back better than that.
There's a monster in the woods. You gotta go down there.
A monster? Really?
It just seemed like they were laughing about it. He said, oh, a monster, really?
I told you they don't believe
Have
us.
you been drinking, ma'am?
No, it's real. It's out there. You've got to go down there. It's out there. It's going to get somebody.
Look at the scratches on the car. Come on, look at this.
So the police walked out to their car and did see peculiar-looking scratch marks all over the hood of the car.
Look at that. Look at that.
And the car stunk on the outside so bad. It was like decomposed animals. I don't know how else to describe it.
The second group of women described it the same way that the first group of women described it, as having the green face, the claws, being about 6 foot tall, bipedal. Being that these two groups of women did not know each other or know anything about each other's report, it does bring somewhat credibility to the reports.
In the small town, the monster quickly became big news. In 1974, Harry McCauley was the editor of the Columbus Republic newspaper. He's chased down a lot of stories, but never one like this.
We got this report from the police department, and they described it in terms of kind of a Bigfoot with green, scaly things flowing off of it. Put it on the front page.
The sightings of the mill race monster touched off a wave of mob hysteria. Residents took the news like a call to arms.
Come on, listen up. It said they saw this monster down here by the water.
Front page helped feed what developed afterwards. Police reported that people were coming down to the park armed with knives and clubs, searching for the monster.
As the news spread further, the monster hunting mob expanded quickly.
A lot of people were flocking to this area to get a glimpse of the monster. This was one of the largest monster hunts known in history, where all these hundreds of people were coming out looking for this creature.
People were walking through the woods with baseball bats and shotguns. It was getting to be a dangerous situation.
So the mayor had instructed the parks director to go ahead and shut down the park for the safety of the public. They were afraid that somebody was going to get hurt.
Gozo! Found the monsters back that way. He chased us out. If they shoot, you're gonna shoot. We ain't shooting nobody tonight. Go.
Whatever it was, it scared him away, probably. Because there was a lot of people coming in that park, and I'm sure it wasn't going to face all those people.
In Columbus, Indiana, in November of 1974, a green, grimy creature on the loose threw a Midwestern town into panic. In what became one of the largest monster hunts in American history, hundreds of residents took up arms to search a downtown park.
Time to go. Time to go.
You know, we were lucky, I guess. Somebody could have been hurt. Somebody could have been killed. You know, we bit the bullet on that one. We should be thankful for it.
Nobody ever really could identify what it was. And to this day, I wonder where it came from and wonder where it went to.
A lot of people speculate that maybe this is the same type of creature as Bigfoot. There's a lot of similarities to it. However, this creature, the mill race monster, has a green look to it, which is unusual. This is something a little bit unique and different.
Just prior to the sightings, strange lights had appeared in the night sky. Was there a connection to the monster from the muck?
A few months prior to this, there was quite a bit of UFO sightings around the area of Columbus and all over the Midwest. So some people were speculating maybe this was left behind by a UFO.
Then again, is there an earthly explanation for the green coloration of the face and fur?
I remember back years ago, there was a dye factory in the park area. I'd heard they had dumped dyes in that river.
Whatever the cause, for those who witnessed it, this monster was no hoax.
I know it's real. And what I saw was not a joke. It was not a person in a costume. It was really something that could move around and grimace its face, and it was growling. It was very aggressive. So people can think what they want to. I know what I saw. And I saw something pretty bad. I can't tell you if it was Bigfoot. I can't tell you if it was a monster or an alien. I can't tell you what it was. I know it was real. I know I saw it. And I don't want to think about it too long, because it still scares me to this day.
In the Pacific Northwest, the tiny town of Oakville sits within rain-soaked hardwood forest. In this remote hamlet, some 600 townspeople are well acquainted with the region's relentless rainfall.
We probably have about 275 days of rain.
It's something that if you live here, you just have to become accustomed to.
Yet one night in 1994, the rain was entirely new.
It came out of the sky so fast and covered so fast. It wasn't like a slow snow or anything. It was just like it got dumped on you.
Slimy, globular, and potentially lethal. Oakville residents have wondered ever since, who or what was the cause of the toxic rain? In the early hours of August 7th, something in Oakville was wrong. Sonny Barcliffe was working at a local Oakville store.
One of the things I noticed that day as we were receiving a torrential downpour is that it looked strange. The rain actually looked thick as it was falling outside the store. and I deduced that it probably was due to a distortion in the glass.
As she would discover, this syrupy-looking rain was no optical illusion. When Sunny arrived home, her mother was in the yard.
My mother, she found something very strange all over the top of the wood box. She thought it was hail, but when she touched it, it was soft. She did, in fact, pick up some of the globules, squish them between her fingers, smell them to see if there was an odor. It was on the windshield of my truck, it was on the deck, it was on the wood box, it was in the foliage.
It must have come down with the rain. You know what?
And so our only conclusion is it had to have fallen from the sky with the rain.
These gelatinous lumps had coated some 20 square miles around Oakville. Sunny had some EMT training, so she and her brother approached this material with caution.
We obtained the cleanest vessels we could find, and we went out on the front porch and we started scooping the globules into the container. I opted, and so did my brother, to wear gloves because we considered that it was an unknown substance. I tried floating it in water and dissolving it in alcohol. At one point, I even tried burning it. And oddly, it repelled the flame altogether.
What is this stuff?
At that point, I was very concerned.
Sunny wasn't the only Oakville resident encountering this mystery rain. David Lacey was a patrolman making the rounds that rainy night.
It was about 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was patrolling, and basically it just came out of nowhere, and it started to cover the windshield, so I had to find a place to stop to clean off the windshield, so I could see where I was going. And that's when I noticed it was a gelatinous material on the car, which was really strange. I'm thinking they came down as a round object, because they would hit and they were flat. They had yellow specks in them. They didn't have any smell, no toxic smell to them at all. I knew it wasn't rain, it's nothing I've never come across before. So it was just a question in my mind, what am I dealing with here?
Lacey had no idea of the harm it would inflict on him and the community.
Everybody in town was talking about it and trying to figure out what it was. And we did have cats and dogs dying, and we had a lot of people sick. It was a real mystery.
The next day, Sunny Barcliffe's mother was in the midst of a medical emergency.
I knocked on the door and there was no answer, and that alarmed me. And that's why I entered the bathroom and then found her laying on the floor.
Mom, talk to me!
That was the moment when I became concerned that perhaps the substance that she had touched might have made her sick. I decided to take a sample of the substance to the hospital.
Doctor? My mother was handling
I spoke with the emergency room doctor, told him about what had happened.
it between her fingers, and I think it made her sick.
The doctor agreed to do it and sent it to a lab technician.
While Sunny was at the hospital wondering if her mother would survive the toxic rain, Officer David Lacey was still on patrol, still trying to make sense of the previous night's rain that had smeared his windshield like Vaseline.
I got called out for a suspicious vehicle.
First the rain, now this.
There were two guys with hazmat suits on, and from what I could see at that point, they were collecting this material. I rolled up and they got in the vehicle and left at a high rate of speed. And so I ran the plates. They were a federal plate. I think the military wanted to take a little bit better look at the substance and do their own testing.
At first, Lacey was relieved the military was on the case. His opinion would soon change.
I was throwing up and I had a stomach ache. I had a fever of 102.
Oh, you're burning up.
And I was out of work for about 3 weeks. That was real unusual. I had never missed a day of work prior to that, as I started to correlate it with the material that had come down. It was a real mystery. I didn't know where to turn, or who to contact, and it's not a typical police investigation.
In the summer of 1994, Oakville, Washington, a small town in the Pacific Northwest, experienced a shower of thick, syrupy rain, one that had residents and local police puzzled. Then, people started getting sick.
My mom was hospitalized for 3 days, and when she was discharged from the hospital, they gave her a discharge diagnosis of some kind of virus.
Area doctors reported a spike in major respiratory illnesses. A virus could have circulated through the population, but a virus affecting local animals as well?
My mother's dogs became ill about a week after the fallouts. I found my little kitten dead on the doorstep. We double-bagged the kitten, we hosed down the porch, and we even disinfected it with bleach, and we then carried the kitten to a spot far away and buried it.
With all the rumors circulating through Oakville, it didn't help that local health officials issued no public statement about the mysterious rain.
It was really frustrating, and we didn't get a lot of help from outside agencies. It got to the point where, it's just dead end after dead end.
Washington's Department of Health eventually conducted an analysis of the rain, but the report wasn't publicly released. Monsters and Mysteries has obtained a copy of that report. Its conclusions are stunning. The lab report identified human white blood cells and 2 types of bacteria known to cause illness.
The epidemiologist who was studying the substance concluded that it was something that a bacteria or a virus could be inserted into.
All right, let's go to Jack on KOGO.
Radio host Clyde Lewis makes the case that Oakville was exposed to a biological experiment conducted by the U.S. military.
There are histories of open-air tests being done on American citizens without them knowing. I mean, cadmium sulfide dropped on an area of Minnesota where stillborns and miscarriages happen. I mean, we are testing these things.
Recently, the Department of Defense acknowledged they conducted more than 100 biological warfare tests between 1952 and 1969. Over St. Paul, Minnesota, and St. Louis, Missouri, the Army sprayed cadmium sulfide, a toxic metal, now known to be a potential cancer-causing agent.
I think the government is doing this because, of course, they want to know how we would react to biowarfare, and how better to figure out a bioattack than to run bioattack scenarios on places like Oakville, small towns that we don't hear about.
The explanation is both baffling and potentially criminal. But for the Oakville residents, perhaps the worst part is just not knowing.
I don't think it's right if, in fact, it was the Department of Defense conducting a readiness exercise. We were experimented on, and I'm still feeling a little angry about it.
Even when I took over as chief of police, I continued to investigate it, and it was a real mystery. And it does eat away at me because I'd really like to figure out what it was. We don't know.
In northwest Wisconsin, along the swift-flowing Chippewa River, sits a tiny spit of land known as Merridine Island. Despite tranquil appearances, residents are convinced there's nothing peaceful about this place. From one generation to the next, whispers about killer canines roaming the riverbank.
Well, I was a hunter, and I was a Marine, and I don't scare very easily, but this was definitely very crazy.
I hear the sound getting closer and closer. I jumped into the car and locked the door. I rolled down the window and started yelling for Chris, hurry up, get in the car. Would you please just drive?
In the late 1800s, Merridine, Wisconsin was a bustling lumber depot and ferry crossing. Eventually, the timber business played out, leaving Merridine a ghost town. Then, the sightings began.
We have reports of a creature roaming the area that was terrorizing the community back in the early 1900s, devouring livestock, ripping them apart, chasing children home from school. Witnesses describe this early creature of being the size of a bear, but shaped more like a dog or a wolf, heavily muscled. The creature was never caught, and it still seems to be roaming that area.
To this day, reports of supernatural creatures continue to circulate. All the sightings clustered around an old boat landing just across the river from Merridine.
People seem to be drawn to the area, and they don't necessarily know why, but once they get out there, they get feelings of dread, of eeriness, that something's just not right.
In the fall of 2005, Shelley Touchstone and her fiancé Chris Weiner went for a picnic along the river.
See? Creepy, right?
They wanted to find a secluded spot and thought the ferry crossing might be a daring choice.
Listen. You hear that?
What?
Silence. No kids.
Stop trying to scare me.
There were stories of growling, and some even claimed to have seen the devil dogs.
This place is a little freaky.
I still believe that that was just folklore. People telling stories to scare each other.
What if we lose our keys?
Chris, give me those. Come on, Chris. I felt great. We had a night out, finally alone time away from the kids.
It's when the sun goes down at the boat landing that unusual activity is observed.
And all of a sudden the fog rolled in. Kind of looked at each other like, yeah, this is kind of creepy.
Wow.
It got even colder. The wind picked up a little bit. It was very eerie. And the next thing we knew, we heard movement in the leaves. And I looked over at Chris and he goes, "Did you hear that?"
The footsteps were getting closer and closer. You could hear it snapping twigs, snapping even branches, it sounded like.
It sounded like a giant was coming through the forest. My first instinct was, it's a bear, get in the car, lock the door.
My adrenaline is rushing because I want to know what's coming, but yet I don't see anything. I looked for shadows and there was nothing. It was just the sound coming toward me.
Would you please just drive? I'm in the car and I'm yelling at him, "Chris, get in the car, let's go." It sounded 10 times louder than a wolf. I was frantic, I was shaking, I felt just terrified. I thought, this is it, I'm going to die. Something that I can't even see is going to take my life, and I'll never see my children again.
Merredin, Wisconsin, an abandoned ferry crossing on a lonely stretch of river. Some say it's the address where a terrifying package of pure evil resides. Devil dogs.
Worldwide, we have thousands of reports of these devil dogs that seem to inhabit these paranormal hotspots. Many witnesses will hear a growl right next to them. They'll even feel that there's something there. Sometimes they've even heard it breathing, but yet nothing ever appears. So these creatures seem to have the ability to make themselves invisible when they want.
Did you hear that?
On a crisp October night in 2004, at the Merredin boat landing, Shelley Touchstone and her fiancé Chris Weiner were having a romantic time together.
Let's go!
Something intruded.
As I heard the noise, I couldn't see anything. It sent a chill down my spine. Chris is still outside and I am terrified for his safety. And I tell him, I scream at him, "Would you please just get in the car, I'm going to leave you." It was just the worst growl you can imagine possible. So deep and so frightening, it sent chills all through my body.
Gee!
No, please, hurry up!
Even in the car, there seemed no escape.
We turned back onto the road to go up the hill, and it sounds like this thing is running up the hill right next to the car.
It sounded like a huge dog. Just a massive dog, something huge, just running right next to the car. At that very moment, I thought, what in the world is going on? I've got to get out of here. I feel like I'm going to die.
Shelley and Chris reached the top of the hill, certain this moment would be their last.
We get to the top of the hill, and the noise stops.
There was nothing there. Okay, Chris, let's go. But something was growling, something was chasing us. What else could it be? It had to be the devil dogs.
Encounters like this one have fascinated Chad Lewis for years. As an author and paranormal researcher, Lewis began investigating the Chippewa River area, determined to find the cause.
It used to be more of a thriving community, but today it's just the remnants of people who were once there, people who are growing older and refuse to move out of the area.
Mary Dean Island doesn't yield its secrets easily. Yet at some point, Chad realized the answer was staring him in the face. Mary Dean. As he'd discover, the name is actually Mary Dean.
The legend started back in the 1800s when a young woman by the name of Mary Dean did in fact drown in the river. We don't know how old Mary Dean was when she died. All the newspaper accounts different, but she definitely has taken on the role of a murderous siren.
Mary,
Detective,
you almost made it scary.
why do you have to be so handsome?
Her spirit seems to be trapped in the place where she met her fate, and that's why she continues to haunt the place.
What's more, Mary Dean's death seems to have attracted a monster.
The creature seems to inhabit that area, whether it's drawn to Mary Dean because it's a paranormal hotspot, or it's attracted by all the people that go there, or it just loves the seclusion of the area. We're not certain, but since the late 1800s, early 1900s, Mary Dean has been its home.
In the fall of 2014, Jeremy Stark and Mike Boghosi, young men with an avid interest in supernatural legends, decided to check out the notorious boat landing for themselves. This is the first time they've shared their story.
We've been to cemeteries, we've been inside houses that are legitimately haunted. You know, we've been touched, we've been chased out, but there was nothing as scary as that night.
Being chased by a dog like that was the most terrifying things I've ever had. Just that fear of, am I going to get out of this alive?
On the island of Mary Dean, in the Chippewa River in Wisconsin, devil dogs are rumored to lurk.
Devil dogs are probably one of the worst things a person can come face to face with. In all of mythology, all of paranormal, anything, they're literally feral dogs from hell. And they're going to do whatever they can to get you down to hell with them.
Mike Boghosi and Jeremy Stark, residents of nearby Green Bay, Wisconsin, have formed their own truth squad, dedicated to hunting down supernatural legends. On the night of October 9th, 2014, they set out to challenge the devil dogs to make an appearance. An adventure that would become much more than they bargained for.
The path that we drove down to get there was very windy, pretty rocky dirt road. About 5 miles away from the boat landing, I started to get really, really anxious. Just that feeling that you get while you're there that just says we shouldn't be here. You couldn't see more than 10 feet into the woods. I refused to take the truck out of drive. I had the wheel turned all the way to the right so we could make a quick turnaround to get out of there. I didn't want to take any chances.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Jeremy, hold on.
It was so still out there. And then I'm looking down the shore, and I see this fog start to roll in. Told him something's not right with that fog. That's making me uneasy. And we start walking back. I hear this very loud growling. Just this really deep, low growl, nothing like I've ever heard. Made me freeze in my tracks.
I saw something move in front of the car, like very low, just right in front of the hood.
The legend was unfolding right before their eyes.
Hey man, cut the lights.
The dare for Mary Dean Island is if you park your car at the boat landing and shut off your headlights completely, then devil dogs will appear in front of you.
Despite their growing alarm, the guys are too close to the truth to turn back now.
Dude, come on. I turned the lights off completely, and this really thick fog was right in front of our truck.
The thick, instantaneous fog was unnerving. What they saw next was even scarier.
What is that?
It looked just like the shape of a person. A very thin figure walking through the fog.
And as sure as I'm sitting here, I see a woman standing, and sitting in front of her is the most vicious-looking, raggedy dog-looking thing I've ever seen. And then she just points at our truck. That dog took off so fast after us.
I said, that's it, we're out of here. And I was going probably 30, 35, almost 40 miles an hour going up this rocky hill in the middle of the night, in the middle of the woods. And Jeremy's telling me to go faster.
And that dog was keeping right up, was no more than 5 feet away from the bumper the whole time we were driving out of there. As soon as we got off the dirt road and out of the woods and back onto pavement, the dog just up and disappeared. It wasn't there.
The stories about this place are true. Mary Dean is there, devil dogs are there, we shouldn't be.
We don't know why the devil dogs are there, what their motivation is, what their ultimate end game is. Many believe they're here to do the devil's bidding, to cause fear and panic. And they seem to be doing a good job at that, because everyone who sees them is scared beyond belief.